Hey everyone, Todd here. Today we're talking audio. Now, we all know that audio is one of the most important parts of our video. So whether you're going to be filming yourself or you're working with a client, I've got 6 tips of how to get better audio when you're in the field. Let's jump right in. So our first tip is going to be location. Location is so important whenever you're looking at recording audio. Now today I chose to record here in a park, so having some environmental noise, maybe a few cars going by, some birds in the background, things like that, that's going to make sense. However, when you're setting up to record audio, there's a lot of things to think about. Few things just come to mind. If you're outside, you're recording in a park like I am today, how close are you to a playground? Is there a sports field nearby? There might be a lot of cheering and a bunch of noise. How close are you to a road? Is there going to be a lot of noise traffic from traffic going by? Or maybe you're somewhere where there's near construction. Is that going to come into play? So when you're outside and you're recording, you need to make a personal decision based upon your project and whatever you're filming of how much noise in the environment is going to be acceptable and will not be distracting in your video. Now, if you're filming indoors, there's a whole nother set of things you've got to think about when you're talking about a location and the effect it's going to have on the audio. So for instance, is the room that you're recording in, does it have carpet on the floor? Are there any bit of sound treatment, maybe drapes or things on the walls to help with reverb there as well? Also, if you are in an office building, where are the hallways or conference rooms where other people might come into play, whether someone's walking down a hallway, maybe it's a conference room nearby and people are going to be in there and having a meeting. Are you near the front door? Is there going to be a noise from the front door opening and closing? Is there a key card entry that may have an effect on the audio as well? Also, think about things like air conditioning, and if you have the ability to turn that on or off. And also, maybe is there a kitchen nearby? Is there going to be a refrigerator coming on or off? Is there going to be an ice maker nearby? There's so many things to consider when you talk about recording audio indoors. Tip number 2 is going to be about choosing the right tool for the job. Now, before I jump into talking about the different types of microphones that you may want to consider using, let's first make sure we understand something called a polar pattern. Now, a polar pattern basically is the area of sensitivity, or it's often called the picking pattern of the microphone, which basically is what direction or directions is the microphone going to be recording sound from. Now, some of the more common patterns that we're going to see when we talk about polar patterns are going to be omnidirectional, cardioid, supercardioid, and hypercardioid. Now, omnidirectional is pretty much as the name implies, we're going to get pickup all around the microphone itself. The cardioid pattern is more sensitive in the front and rejects the sound that comes from the back side of the microphone. And then the next two, supercardioid and hypercardioid, they're a tighter pattern when it comes to picking up sound in the front, but it also introduces picking up sound from the back side of the microphone. And then between super and hypercardioid, that pattern will just narrow down as far as sensitivity to the front and the back side of the microphone. All right, so let's jump into and talk about some of the different types of microphones that we can choose to use. Now, I'm not going to cover all the microphones that are out there, but these are going to be some basic options for just getting started when you're doing video and need to record some audio. Now, the first kind of microphone that I'm going to talk about is a microphone that I'm using currently for recording this video, and that is a shotgun microphone on top of the camera. Now, this is a really simple setup, super easy to use, and you get great sound from this setup. Now, keep in mind though, this is successful if you are able to be close enough to the camera or the microphone that is picking up that audio. The more distance that you introduce in this kind of scenario, then the tougher it is to get great audio from a shotgun microphone placed on top of the camera. So the microphones that we're talking about right now are either going to be a hypercardioid or a supercardioid pattern. Also, when you're outdoors recording, I highly recommend the use of a dead cat. And a dead cat is one of these. This is a fuzzy cover that's going to go over the top of the microphone, and it's going to help cut back any wind noise that you may be picking up when you're recording. Even if it's just a subtle breeze and a small breeze, this will do a lot of good to help you on your audio sounding clean and minimizing that sound of any wind noise you may be picking up. Now, most microphones are going to come with a foam cover that's going to go on top of the microphone itself. That's great for using whenever you're indoors, but it's not the best whenever you're outdoors, especially if you're in a little bit of a windy environment, even like I mentioned, a subtle breeze. So some microphones are going to come with a dead cat included, and some of them you're going to have to go and purchase one, and you can usually find those on Amazon fairly cheap. Now, the microphone that I'm using right now is a Saramonic VMic 5 Pro. It's a great microphone for using on top of the camera. It is a supercardioid pattern microphone, and it actually comes with the dead cat as part of the kit. I'll make sure I link that down below. In fact, any of the tools and accessories that I talk about during this video, I'm gonna go ahead and drop those links below for you so you can go check them out and hopefully add them to your kit. So the next style of microphone that we're going to talk about is going to be a lavalier microphone. Now there's a variety of different ways that we can use a lavalier microphone, but one thing that's going to be key is a lavalier microphone will usually be clipping onto your wardrobe. So you want to make sure that the person that you're recording knows that they're going to be using a lavalier microphone and that you give them some direction on the type of wardrobe to wear. You also want to make sure that you can hide it as much as possible. So with a gentleman that's wearing a tie, can easily get clipped behind the tie and let that main tie sit on top of it. Maybe you clip it to the shirt that's underneath the tie. Also, if someone's wearing a button-up shirt, you may be able to clip it to the inside of the shirt and let the button-up panel go over the top of it. Or like for me here, when I'm wearing the t-shirt, I typically wear two t-shirts, so I could clip the lavalier microphone to the inside t-shirt and then let the outside shirt sit over on top of it, and that'll hide that nicely. Now, when you start hiding a lavalier microphone, you also need to make sure that you're monitoring the audio and you're listening, because if the person talks with their hands a lot, their clothes are going to shift and move around, and that will cause some of the clothing to maybe rub across the top or the tip of the microphone, which will cause some noise, obviously. Now, also, if you have that microphone exposed on the outside and you're clipping it to someone's jacket or to the shirt, then a couple more things to think about is if they're wearing a necklace or a chain, make sure that doesn't hit up against the microphone itself. And also, if they've got longer hair, then just making sure the hair is pushed away from the microphone, because the hair will move across the top of that microphone and that will cause some noise and some rustling during the recording. So now let's talk about how we get that audio from the lavalier microphone back to the camera. So the simplest and the easiest and the most affordable is going to be that you would just take the lavalier microphone and get one that has a longer cable, or you can buy an extension cable for it, and you can basically clip on the microphone and then run that cable all the way back to the camera, and that will plug into that 3.5mm jack that we talked about earlier that we're using with a shotgun microphone that fits on top of the camera. Now, another option that we have for recording lavalier audio is going to be using an external recorder, a small recorder device that connects to the lavalier microphone that you can record directly into using an SD card or a micro SD card. So a couple of different options. This one here is a small recorder that we can plug our microphone into, uses an SD card, and this can just clip onto the belt loop or slide into someone's pocket, and you can capture the audio this way. Now, this particular device is made by Saramonic, and I'll put a link down in the description below for it as well. Also, you can look at using something like a Zoom H1N. Now, Zoom H1N has a couple of different options. We can record directly into the Zoom recorder using our lavalier microphone, and that works perfect, and it uses a micro SD card. Another thing you can do with this, though, if you're not recording directly into the device using a lavalier microphone, is these are really handy for capturing ambient noise. Maybe you're someplace like in the city, or maybe in a marketplace, or you're down by the stream, anywhere that you might want to record just some of your own sound effects and grab ambient noise to use in the video, then this recorder is super handy because it has little microphones on top that you can use to capture that type of audio. Now, another thing to think about whenever you're recording your audio to a separate recording device is that you're not recording the audio to the camera, therefore it's not married to the video file, which means that you're going to need to sync that audio in post-production. Now, still record the audio to the video from your camera while you're recording and use that as reference audio, but your main audio is going to come from the recorder that you're using. And to synchronize that in post-production is super easy, really easy in Premiere. All you do is select the audio file and you choose the video file, and you right click and you're going to merge the files together on the audio, and it will take care of it for you. Other applications, Final Cut and DaVinci can do the same thing. I'm not sure of the process there. I use Premiere when I'm doing my editing. Now, the next option that we're going to have for using a lavalier microphone is going to be the wireless lavalier microphone setup. And there are two different types of setups that we're going to talk about. The first is going to be the Blink 900, which is going to be a 2.4 gigahertz system. And then we're going to have the UW Mic 9S, which is a UHF system. So let's first start off with the Blink 900 system, which is this one here. Now, this particular unit, you've got a couple different options for recording audio. There's a built-in microphone that sits on top of the device, so you could clip that to your shirt or your subject shirt, and you could use it with just a microphone that's built in, or you have an option to plug in a lavalier microphone as well. Now, with the Blink 900, you're going to get about 200 meters worth of a distance from the camera that you're recording to, which is way more than enough for this type of a setup and for what you would normally want to do and how far you want to be away from the camera. So with your Blink system, you're going to have the transmitter, and then you're going to have the receiver that'll sit on top of the camera, and then this will plug into the camera microphone port using the 3.5 millimeter jack. And then the other wireless lav option is going to be the UHF version, which is this system here. So obviously being a little bit bigger, and also we've got the antennas here, the other advantage of this is going to be the distance or the range that you have from the camera itself. And as far as the setup is concerned, this particular unit here is going to be the transmitter, and the lavalier microphone will plug into this, and this can clip onto someone's belt loop or drop into the pocket. And then this particular unit, this is the receiver that will sit on top of the camera, and then we'll plug into the camera's microphone jack using the 3.5 millimeter jack, just like the other system. Another thing you can do with this system is that if you're in a busy environment, or maybe you're in a downtown area where there's a lot of other interference, then you can run a channel scan, and it will find an open channel that you'll have minimal to no interference to be able to record on. Now, the last microphone setup that I'm going to show you is going to be a different style of a shotgun microphone. Now, we've got a shotgun microphone on top of the camera, but this is a higher quality microphone. This is more of a broadcast style microphone, and the pickup pattern for this one is going to be a cardioid pattern. So it's going to be more front focused and reject sound coming from the backside of the microphone. It also uses a very different connector as well. This is an XLR connection as opposed to the 3.5 millimeter. Now, typically you would not use this type of a microphone on top of the camera. You could, and if you did, you would just need to get an adapter that's going to go from the XLR input to the 3.5 millimeter jack that'll plug into the microphone port on the camera itself. Now, typically when using this style of microphone, though, we are going to go into a recorder. Now, earlier we talked about the Zoom H1N, which is a smaller recorder. The other one that I have here is called the Zoom H5, and this particular recorder is bigger. Obviously, we do have the microphones on top that we can use for capturing ambient audio, environmental audio, but we do have XLR jacks on the bottom of this particular unit that are perfect for recording using this type of a microphone. Just like we talked about with the Zoom H1N, this particular recorder also has these audio adjustment levels here, so we can control the gain levels or the audio levels that we're recording using this recorder. So those are my three main microphone setups that I recommend when you're just starting out. But personally, if you're just getting started, I would stick with either the shotgun microphone on top of the camera or one of the lavalier microphone setups that we discussed. Now let's jump into tip number 3, and that's going to be placement of the microphone itself. You'll want to get the microphone as close as possible to your subject. So like in this scenario, that microphone is probably about 1.5 to 2 feet away from me. The lavalier microphone, you're going to want to get that as close as you can. And then in the scenario of the boom microphone that we talked about, you want to get that about a 45 degree or a 90 degree angle just right above your subject, just out of frame. Like usually when I set up a shot like that, I'll bring the microphone into frame and then I'll pull it up to where it's just barely out of frame. And the main reason why you want to get your microphone as close as possible to your subject is that you don't want to have to increase the gain volume of the microphone too much. The more you increase the gain volume of the microphone, then the more you're going to pick up ambient and environmental noise as well, and you want to minimize that. Tip number 4, listen to the audio that you're recording. Now, I want to be clear though, listen with a proper set of headphones. Get a set of headphones that are going to go over your ears to help isolate the sound. Don't use the earbuds don't work that great. If you're in a pinch and that's all you have, better something than nothing. But by all means, when you can, listen to the audio that you're recording using a proper set of headphones. You'll be able to pick up and hear a lot more of those little small noises that you may not hear otherwise. Tip number 5. Now, we haven't really talked about this yet, but that is going to be, how do I power the microphone? In most of the shotgun microphones that we get that are going to sit on top of the camera, or with a lavalier microphone, they're going to need batteries of some sort. Now, the lavalier microphones that I showed you, those particular microphones are going to have rechargeable batteries that are inside, so that works great. Love that option because you don't have to worry about and remember to bring batteries with you. Now, in reference to the shotgun microphone that sits on top of the camera, that microphone is going to run off of a rechargeable battery that's inside of it, or I can also run it using phantom power. Now, what is phantom power? Well, phantom power allows us to power the microphone from the camera battery itself. And this is a really big benefit. And I encourage you that when you go out and you look for a microphone that sits on top of the camera, that you try to run one off of phantom power whenever you can. Now, why do I say that about phantom power? So, couple of things. First of all, if you forget to charge your microphone, then you can run it off of phantom power and you're good to go. Also, most microphones, like the one that I'm using, don't show you a power meter, so you really don't know and don't have a gauge as you're recording as to what the battery level is on the microphone. Now, a lot of them are going to have battery times that are going to last 10, 20, 30 hours worth of recording. But you don't have that safety net of being able to look to see what the battery level is. But if you're running off of phantom power, then you know that that microphone is powered from the camera battery, and your cameras are going to give you a power level and a battery indicator, so you're going to know how much power you have left. And here we are at tip number 6, and that's going to be about the settings that you use while you're recording your audio. So when you look at your audio setup inside of your camera or on your recording device, you're going to see a few different formats, things like AAC, MP3, or WAV, and there's other ones as well, but those are some of the more common ones. Now, personally, what I recommend is you record in a WAV file. That's going to give you a lot of flexibility in post-production if you need it. It's a higher quality audio format. I would not use an MP3 unless you absolutely have to. An MP3 is not going to be of high as a quality. It's going to have a little more compression. It's just not going to give you that flexibility or that robust sound that you want when you're recording audio. Also, there's a lot of different kilohertz settings and bit rates and so on. And instead of getting into all of that, I'm just going to recommend that you record in 48 kilohertz at 24 bit. That is the industry standard, and that is going to give you plenty of quality that you need whenever you're recording audio, and if you want to do some sweetening of that audio in post-production. And when it comes to setting audio levels, you need to keep your audio levels between -9 and -12. Now, audio works off of a negative scale, so if you're at 0, then you're actually blown out. You've clipped your audio. It's kind of like in a photograph whenever you've blown your highlights and you can't get it back. It's the same kind of scenario whenever you're working with audio. So -9 to -12 is in that green zone. That's your sweet spot for recording audio and keeping the gain levels appropriately there and not picking up a lot of extra ambient noise as well. Now, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the proximity of the microphone works in conjunction with the audio levels. So the closer that microphone is to your subject, then the lower you're going to be able to keep the audio gain, which then, as I mentioned before, definitely minimizes the environmental or the ambient noise that you're going to pick up with the microphone as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, all the links to the tools that I use, the accessories, they're all down below in the description. Love for you to go check those out and add some of these to your kit. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one. So remember when I talked about location? So I keep on having to record over and over because these planes keep going over.